Tommy Jaggi of Fansided here with NFL expert Marcus Mosher. Marcus, we have 1 week of NFL action officially in the books behind us. We may have already gotten the game of the year when you watch the Bills play the Ravens on Sunday Night Football. Amazing game. We're going to get to that in a little bit here. Today, we're going to do something. We're going to talk about our biggest overreactions from week one, Marcus, because historically, week one can be kind of fluky.
Yeah, I mean it's so much better than having to guess about preseason games and trade talks. It's actually fun to talk about these games. So, listen, most of the stuff we're going to talk about right now is probably not going to matter by the time we get to November, December. But that's what week 1 is for. It's a perfect time to overreact to your team looking awesome, or like in my case, my team not looking as awesome, right? So it's always a fun time of the year.
Exactly. And we'll sign off today with our predictions for Thursday Night Football, Packers against the Washington Commanders, Marcus. But let's get to our biggest overreactions. And I want to start with a really notable game from this week, one that we thought was going to be much better than it was. And that was the Lions facing the Packers. The Lions did not look good in this game. They got a score late. They ultimately lost 27-13. I mean, the Lions have been one of the hottest teams in the league the past 2 years. They've had a tremendous coaching staff. Dan Campbell leading the ship over there. Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator. Aaron Glenn. Those guys are both gone now. Head coaching positions. We'll talk about them as well. But what happened to the Lions here? Is it too early to hit the panic button? You look at some of these numbers like, Jared Goff went 31 of 39. He must have had a pretty good game. 5.8 yards an attempt. They had 6 points going into the fourth quarter, and they just got owned by the Green Bay Packers, who everybody seems to be high on since the Micah trade. Marcus, are we overreacting to the Lions? Are they not a playoff team this year?
So I wouldn't overreact based on what we saw in week 1, because we'll get to Green Bay in a second. I just think they're really good. But this is kind of what we expected a little bit, right? It's a new look offensive line. They had a lot of turnover in that group. You mentioned the coaching changes. That's a big deal. We saw how that impacted Philadelphia in 2023 when they lost both coordinators. The defense, I think, is going to be good, but maybe not quite as good as we saw last year, even with Aiden Hutchinson being back. And then on top of that, Tommy, they play a first place schedule. They won the NFC North last year. This is a brutal schedule. I think I think they sneak into the playoffs, but I don't think this is the Super Bowl caliber, team that we saw at least over the last 2 years.
Yeah, and Marcus, we did our power rankings last week on the Stack in the Box show, and we slotted the Lions in at 9th, and we took a little bit of heat from that in some of the comments. But you're kind of seeing already the ramifications of losing those coaches and what that means to this team. Now, obviously, it's week 1. Fluky things happen. We'll see where things go from here, but not a super encouraging outlook right away.
Well, and I think the biggest thing that was noticeable right away is Jared Goff is not the type of quarterback, and we've known this, that can function highly when he's pressured, right? He is, when he's pressured, he's either going to take a sack or he's going to dump the ball underneath. And we saw Jahmyr Gibbs had 10 catches in this game, right? Like, that is his answer to pressure. And unfortunately, you just can't live that way in the NFL, especially in the NFC, when you're going to be going up against so many great pass rush units. I'm a little bit worried about Jared Goff, and with this offensive line, the interior is just not a very good group right now with Frank Ragnow retiring. We'll see. I trust Dan Campbell to get this thing figured out, but that was a pretty rough week 1 showing.
Yeah, Marcus, and you said it, even with the return of Aiden Hutchinson, it was easy to see some sort of regression coming from the Lions. Mm-hmm. We didn't think that they would start off maybe this slow, but again, we'll keep an eye on it and see. But maybe an overreaction to say they're not a playoff team. I would agree, but definitely not the start that you want to see from them. Let's talk about the team that just whipped them pretty good here in this game, and that's the Green Bay Packers. They've been all the buzz, especially since trading 2 first-round picks and Kenny Clark for Micah Parsons. Does not look like a bad trade so far. Parsons had an excellent first outing, especially considering dealing with the L4, L5 back injury, hardly practicing at all, and he comes in there taking on double teams, doing what Micah Parsons does. The Packers are just so strong, Marcus. You look at their roster from top to bottom. Where is the weakness on this team? And what's so incredible about this win is, I mean, they were up, 27-6
I mean,
at
they
one point, I
dominated.
think, in this
It
game.
wasn't even close. Yeah.
It wasn't close. I mean, the game was never close. Jordan Love only threw the ball 22 times. Most receivers had 1 or 2 receptions. I think the 8 different receivers caught a ball, 1 or 2 receptions. The only guy with 3 receptions was Jaden Reed, 3 catches for 45 yards. So the ball's getting spread out. It's not like there was a single dominant offensive or even defensive performance in this game. It was just, as a unit, they look so strong. Are the Packers the best team in the NFL already?
I think so. I just think usually it's the most well-rounded team that ends up winning the Super Bowl. And we saw this with Philadelphia last year. Like, just they did not have a weakness that you could attack. And that's the way I feel about Green Bay. The only question is their secondary, and that held up really well. And that was with Nate Hobbs, their top cornerback, who they signed this offseason from the Raiders. He didn't even play in this game, and it didn't matter at all. I just think they are loaded with at every position, even the linebackers. Like Edgerrin Cooper, I thought was phenomenal. And they've got Quay Walker and Micah Parsons, who can line up there if needed. They've just got so much depth. Jordan Love was protected all day. They've made a lot of investments into that offensive line. If I had to pick a team to come out of the NFC right now, I think I take Green Bay. I think they're a little bit better coached than what Philadelphia is, and Philadelphia is also dealing with the loss of an offensive coordinator. But to me, Tommy, those are the top 2 teams in the NFC. It's the Philadelphia Eagles and it's the Green Bay Packers. And I would be shocked if it's not one of those teams representing the NFC in the Super Bowl this year.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's easy to see why their start was every bit as strong as we would kind of expected that it would be. Like we said, no roster holes. Marcus, where do we have them in our power rankings?
They were like 5 or 6. They were pretty high. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Carlos chimes in here with love the podcast. Thank you, Carlos. If you guys are joining us here in the live chat, drop some questions for us. We'd love to see if we can get some answers for you here. We're going to move on to our next overreaction from week 1, Marcus. And I want to talk about Monday Night Football game, and that's Caleb Williams. So we saw a very high variance performance out of a quarterback that's been very high variance so far in his career. I mean, we're talking about a prospect who was considered to be really good coming out of USC, and all the flashes are there. I mean, the rushing ability, play extension. I mean, he scrambles too much, I would say. He has got a whip attached to that right shoulder, but every like 4th pass was airmailed. Like, some of these, he's got to clean up the mechanics, because I think if he can, there's so much to work with there. And I think that's why Ben Johnson was so intrigued by this coaching position in Chicago. Marcus, we talk about Caleb's accuracy issues, though, and they've been prevalent so far in his first 2 seasons. Is this a major concern, or are we overreacting to it?
I think we're overreacting a little bit. We should give credit to Brian Flores, who I think is the best defensive mind in the NFL. I mean, some of the things that he was doing in the second half of this game were unreal. I mean, he is going to be aggressive and challenging you to stay in the pocket and throw the ball deep. And I thought the pressure got to Caleb a little bit. Now, to his credit, he did end up making some big plays down the stretch to at least give the Bears some chance of winning it. You're just not going to go up against very many defensive minds like Brian Flores through the rest of the year. I think Caleb, in a new system, he's going to settle down. It's a new look offensive line. I'm not overly concerned here. I know it's week 1. I know everybody wants to get their takes off. I think Caleb is going to be just fine.
Yeah, Marcus. And as a Steelers fan, I'm still bitter that the Steelers let Flores walk in 2023 to promote Terrell Austin, an experiment that is not going extremely well for Pittsburgh. But you said it, tough defense. I would agree with you. I think that we're overreacting a little bit. I think there are some concerns, but I wouldn't say that it's a major concern. He's still a very young quarterback, so much to work with there. And I think with the talent around him, with Ben Johnson, he's going to get it. It's going to take a little bit of time. There's a lot of moving pieces that need some time to gel off on the offensive line, skill players. So I think that they will get there eventually, not hitting the panic button yet on Caleb Williams. Marcus, let's talk about the New York Giants. And I think that they had at least respectable hopes when they signed Russell Wilson this offseason, kind of be a bridge quarterback. We knew he wasn't going to be anything more. Obviously, the Giants traded back into the first round to draft quarterback Jaxson Dart. We might see that guy sooner rather than later here. Russell is coming off of just an abysmal performance here against the Commanders. Here, he's 17 of 37, 168 yards, 4.5 yards an attempt, a 25 QBR with a 59 passer rating, and he led his team to 6 points. And he 6 of the first 7 drives were punts. They had a turnover on downs, and they got a field goal late in the game. Like, this was as bad as it gets. We talked about, though, how daunting New York's schedule is coming up here. They got a game against Dallas. In the first 8 weeks, they got 2 games against the Eagles. Like, what do you do? Should the Giants bench Russell Wilson, or is that an overreaction?
I think it's an overreaction because you signed Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston to be bridge quarterbacks. And what does that mean? It means having them take the lumps early while Jaxson Dart gets up to the speed of the NFL. I just wouldn't want to expose Dart to some of these top tier defenses coming up, not necessarily Dallas, but they played Denver and Philadelphia and Kansas City. When your offensive line is a disaster, Andrew Thomas continues to deal with an injury. He did not play in week 1. We'll see if he's ready in week 2, but you've got James Hudson and Jermaine Illuminor as your starting tackles. That's not good enough. The interior is old. It's not great either. You're putting Russell Wilson in there so he can take the hits as Dart learns. What's the rush here, Tommy? Like, why do you need him in week 2 or week 3? Like, the Giants aren't going to make the playoffs anyways. You would rather give Dart an extra 2 months to get up to speed, give him more practice reps. I just don't see the benefit of putting him in there, getting absolutely killed on offense, and then ruining his confidence. Like, give him a little bit of time to develop before we put him into the lineup.
Yeah, 100%. And my answer, Marcus, to this question, this overreaction, is 100% no. You should not bench Russell Wilson yet. You got to get past this tough part of the schedule. Jaxson Dart turned 22 years old this summer. He's coming from a kind of a gimmicky Lane Kiffin offense at Ole Miss. There's no chance that I'm throwing him to the Wolves this early in his NFL career. I would wait. I wait it out. Even if things aren't going good for the Giants this first quarter of the season, I don't think that you can afford to do that at the cost of hurting the development of who you hope that is your franchise quarterback in Jaxson Dart. So no, I would not bench Wilson. Things were really ugly, but I would not bench him yet. Marcus, let's talk about my guy, Aaron Rodgers, Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback. Who would have guessed in his first game as a Steeler, an offense that averaged 14 points a game over the last 5 weeks of the season? His 41-year-old quarterback has a 4-touchdown performance and leads the Steelers to a 34-32 victory over the Jets. Who guessed 66 total points in this game? But it was an offensive showing. Is Aaron Rodgers back, Marcus? Are we making way too much of this?
I think it depends a little bit, right? Like, I was going to say Russell Wilson. Could Aaron Rodgers be a competent quarterback in 2025? Yeah, I think he could be. Is Aaron Rodgers is he back to being the MVP level quarterback that we saw in 2020 and 2021? No, I don't think so. 2 things stood out to me. Number 1, he had the lowest average depth of target in the NFL in week 1. And number 2, he had the quickest time to throw. Those are not 2 stats that line up generally with elite quarterback play. I think Arthur Smith did a really good job of designing a game plan to get the ball out of his hands quick so he wouldn't take as many hits. He still got hit a bunch in this game. I do think he can be a good functioning quarterback, but let's also remember Russell Wilson tore up this Jets team just half a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
This Jets defense has been pretty bad for a while now. I think if you're a Steeler fan, you're very encouraged by what you saw because this was the best that the offense has looked really in the last 5 years. But Tommy, you and I have talked about this for months now. We weren't worried necessarily about Aaron Rodgers in September and October. It's once the weather turns in November, December, and the legs are giving out on him a little bit and the offensive line has some injuries, then what does he look like? Because that's usually the case with these quarterbacks. They look good early in the season, but by the time we get to the dog days of the season, that's when we see them really struggle.
Yeah, Marcus, and if you wanted to make kind of the easiest prediction that sounds good until you actually think about it, it's Aaron Rodgers is going to have his best season since his 2021 MVP year with the Green Bay Packers. Well, since then, he's ruptured his Achilles. He led the Jets to a 5-12 record. It's a really low bar to clear. So he's not going to be the same Aaron Rodgers he was in 2021 and prior, but he can certainly be the best quarterback that we've seen since then, the best version of himself we've seen since then. But this offensive line was bad. And I think that's maybe the most encouraging thing to take away from Rodgers' performance was the fact that he was under pressure at times. He was getting hit, but taking those hits wasn't rattling him. When he was kept clean, he was really good in this game. And so the Steelers' offensive line can do a little bit better job. And I think I would expect them to moving forward. Maybe there's something to get optimistic about here. He relied so much on yak yards in this game. You got to make more plays down the field. Jets played a lot of cover one. They were kind of daring him to throw the football down the field, and the Steelers didn't really offer him the time to do that. So we'll see if he can make more intended air yards. I think it's going to have to go up if this success wants to be sustained.
Yeah, we also shouldn't be surprised that Aaron Rodgers played really well against the Jets. Like, of all the games this year,
Oh, yeah.
I would have bet my life that the Jets would probably be one of his best games. Now, we'll see what it looks like the next couple of weeks against Seattle and New England, two of the better defenses in the league. But again, for week one, I think you have to be at least somewhat encouraged by the performance, but just don't go overboard putting him in the conversation as a top 5 quarterback again, because we know that's not the case.
Yeah. Marcus, let's talk about the quarterback that he was going against, essentially swapped jerseys with this past offseason. That's Justin Fields, who the Steelers gave up on after 6 weeks last year. He led Pittsburgh to a 4-2 record during that time. He was executing Tomlin's game plan. What happens? Tomlin benches him. They go the rest of the way with Russell Wilson. Now Fields is the quarterback for the New York Jets. And Marcus, I don't know if he could have played much better against Pittsburgh. I mean, he killed the Steelers with the read option offense. He tucked it out, ran with the ball, threw on the run, accurate, tight window throws. Like, he looked really good. Are we buying that he's the next franchise quarterback in New York, though?
No. I mean, we've got a lot of data that suggests that it's probably not going to happen. Now, can he be a functional quarterback? Can he be a good bridge to whoever the Jets draft either next year or the following year? I think so. And I think what you saw is if the running game is working and the offensive line is holding up, he is a good enough talent to keep your offense afloat. And he made some unbelievable throws in this game. He used his legs. He was good in the red zone. I don't think he's a bad quarterback by any stretch. But I think the offense is still a little bit limited in what you can do with him. Even a lot of the passing game concepts were pretty simple and basic. I think the fact that they were able to run the ball so well set everything up. But no, I don't think this is the Jets' answer. Although, again, it's fun. It's better than what it's been over the last couple of years. And I do think you can be competitive with him at quarterback. But this isn't the guy that's going to go toe-to-toe with Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes in the AFC. So I think it's a little bit of a mirage.
Yeah, I mean, Fields knows how to make it entertaining, if nothing else. But we're talking about a quarterback now who is 26 years old. He's entering his 5th NFL season. And if you haven't seen the significant progress by now, I mean, history kind of shows us that you probably won't. Now, can he be good enough to be a starting quarterback? Absolutely. But franchise quarterback, I think that's a stretch based on everything we saw from him in Chicago, the 6-game sample we saw from the Steelers. And obviously, Tomlin didn't feel that he showed enough in those 6 games to keep moving forward with him. And he was 25 at the time, and there was potential there for him to be the long-term option. I thought that he played an excellent game against Pittsburgh, 79 QBR, 119 passer rating, 10 yards an attempt in this game. I don't know if he's going to be able to repeat those performances throughout the year, but he's going to give some teams some trouble because of his dual threat ability, just not buying him as a true franchise quarterback. Marcus, let's talk about the guy who I think you and I would agree is the best QB in the NFL, the best player in the NFL right now, and that is Josh Allen. And we got to spend some time talking about this game because it resulted in a 41-40 shootout and a win, last second win. Give the ball back to Josh Allen with 1:26 left. Ravens, come on. You know that Josh Allen is going to go down there, get that field goal. And man, that's been the story of his career so far, those fourth quarter comeback wins, specifically over the Baltimore Ravens, who have an MVP in their own right there. I mean, Josh Allen really is that good. Is he the clear-cut top quarterback in the NFL? No conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I think he has been the last couple of years. And I know Patrick Mahomes has a Super Bowl win, so it's hard. I think it's hard for people to say that Josh Allen is better when Patrick Mahomes has beaten him multiple times in the AFC Championship game. But the Chiefs team and the coaching is just that much better. Josh Allen has not been outplayed by Patrick Mahomes. Like, that has not been the case at all. These guys have gone toe-to-toe. And in fact, in most cases, Allen has been better. I think he's the best. You look at what happened on Sunday night. The Ravens have a much better roster, and that's why they were able to run the ball so efficiently. They've got all pros on defense. I thought Kyle Hamilton was the best defender on the field, and yet Josh Allen found a way to pull off the win. Tommy, I'm going to tell you the one series in this game that really emphasized to me why I thought he was so special. So the Bills got the ball at their own 25-yard line with 25 seconds left, right before halftime. And Josh Allen goes 26 yards to Khalil Shakir. This with no timeouts, spiked the ball, and then a 22-yard pass to Dalton Kincaid to put them in field goal range, 43-yard field goal. The Ravens didn't rush anybody. They dropped all 11 guys in coverage. And Josh Allen still found the tiniest window to deliver the ball to Dalton Kincaid where he could get out of bounds and make a play. It's just those kind of moments where you can steal 3 points before a half to keep you in a game. There's just nothing that he can't do. He's a dynamic runner. His arm is ridiculous. He extends plays. He makes plays down the field. His accuracy is improved so much over the last 5 years. I do think he's the clear-cut top quarterback in the NFL, and that's why I will be shocked if anybody but Buffalo is the number one seed in the AFC this year. I would not be surprised if the Bills go 14-3, 13-4 this year. This feels like the season that Buffalo finally gets over the hump and makes it back to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think that the conversation ends now because I know you can't actually see what it would look like, but if you flip Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson positions, he's not in any worse position having that running game and that defense. And so he at least does as well as he's doing right now. And he's already going toe to toe with the best, one of the best rosters in the NFL, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. You could argue that Lamar was even better than Allen last year. This year, we're one game in, but he is showing why he is so lethal, and giving Josh Allen any amount of time is too much time. Like, that's what we've seen. And I can't help but, Marcus, my mind goes back to, I think it was the divisional game 3 years ago against the Chiefs, where it was back and forth. And the fact that he could score as quickly as he did is remarkable. Nothing's changed since then. He is still the most dangerous quarterback in the league for my money. So yes, I do believe Josh Allen is the clear-cut quarterback number one in the NFL. All right, Marcus, along that note, let's talk about Lamar Jackson. Should we trust Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh in big games? Like, why does this continue to happen? We look at the playoff game against Buffalo last year. Mark Andrews drops the would-be tying 2-point conversion. Like, for whatever reason, over the years, they've just not come up in these clutch moments where you must have it moments. Is there reason to be concerned? Should we be concerned about that, or is that an overreaction?
It's tough because on one hand, you can't ignore how many times this seems to happen, whether it's in the regular season or in the postseason. I mean, I remember times where they had a double-digit lead against Kenny Pickett, your guy Kenny Pickett, and they lost that game. I do think some of it is just very fluky. I mean, Derrick Henry just fumbling the ball, late in the fourth quarter. I mean, he's not really a big fumbler. Like, that kind of stuff just happens a little bit. And then, like Kyle Hamilton comes, a centimeter away from blocking the extra point, or sorry, the game-winning field goal.
Yeah.
If that happens, we're not having this conversation. I don't know if we shouldn't trust them, like blindly trust them in these games, but it is a pattern that needs to be cleaned up. And honestly, I think a lot of it is their defense. For whatever reason, they just can't get that one big stop at the end of the game. Like, it would have been nice to see this defense step up and provide any resistance. And I think it was as soon as the fumble happened, the very next play, the Bills got all the way down to the 1-yard line. So I think, honestly, it's more their defense than the offense. But I am a tiny bit concerned about their inability to close out these games.
Yeah, I think that the question is that at the very least, it's justified at this stage. We've seen plenty of Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson together, and in these big games, big moments, for whatever reason, and it's a variety of reasons over the years, they've not been able to close some of these against these big teams. We saw the Isaiah Likely play in week 1 last year against the Chiefs, where toe on the line, back of the end zone. And Marcus, I think the most egregious moment in this game to me was the Ravens had the ball last. You get a first down, the game is over. Like, they got so conservative on their very last offensive possession. It's like, why change up anything from what you were doing prior to that point? And I was watching the game with my brother, and I even told him 4th and 3 there. I'm not going to give the ball back to Josh Allen with a minute and a half left to go down and get a field goal. That's way too easy. I've got Derrick Henry. I've got Lamar Jackson. I need 3 yards. I'm going to live or die by my offense in a game that consisted of 81 points, by the way. Why wouldn't you? So I think the play calling from Harbaugh was questionable on that final drive. But like we said, it's been a variety of reasons. And I do think that it's at least justified to have concerns about Lamar and Harbaugh closing these tough games out. Marcus, I want to talk about a team that was, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think this is one of the flaws when you have a really good defense or had a good defense. The Ravens had an awesome defense in 2024, and they won a lot of games by that unit. And I think Harbaugh was putting faith that they could at least make them attempt a long field goal. Sometimes you just need to go out and win a game rather than trying not to lose it. And I thought Harbaugh did the exact opposite of what we would have done.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Marcus, let's talk about the Kansas City Chiefs now. The team that was, top of the league last year. They went to the Super Bowl. Obviously, the Super Bowl did not go well for them, but the Chiefs are always in it. They're always there. They've been perennially the best overall team in the league for 5-6 years now, as long as they had Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid together. But it looks like they are suddenly in real trouble. I mean, you look at their wide receiver room. Rashee Rice suspended for the first 6 games of the season. Now Xavier Worthy. I mean, he looked like the towel boy on the water boy, just getting ragdolled there. 165-pound receiver, got the shoulder injury. What do you do? Hollywood Brown had 16 targets, turned it into 99 yards, and that included a huge 50-yarder in that mix. You take away that play, it's a terrible game from him. You're relying on Juju Smith-Schuster all of a sudden. Like, is this team in real trouble moving forward?
Yes. I still think they're a playoff team. I think they're going to be fine. They will get Rashee Rice back starting in week 7, and that'll be a big addition. I think he's going to get 1 million targets in this offense. They just have to find a way to survive the next 5 games, right? And unfortunately, they have some really tough games, including a game against Philadelphia this week, who's going to be well rested. This is a roster that has really gotten old very quickly. The offensive line has really deteriorated. Joe Thuney is now in Chicago. They're relying on Kingsley Suamatia at left guard. He's been a disaster. Josh Simmons really struggled in week 1. They don't have the offensive playmakers. Then on defense, they don't have as many dudes up on the front 7 that really make you nervous. So I don't think they're going to be able to rely on that unit to win them, 20 to 19 games like they did last year. They're going to have this offense score more. And while I thought Patrick Mahomes played really well against the Chargers, you can see how big of an impact not having NFL receivers can have on even one of the best quarterbacks of all time. So I think they'll be fine once we get to November, December. And there's a good chance, if they get their guys back and healthy, they're going to be fine once it comes to the postseason. But I think the idea that like they're a lock to win the AFC West or they're a lock to be the 1 or 2 seed, like I don't think that's the case at all.
Yeah, no, I don't think that anybody should have that level of confidence in them. And I am going to say this is a real problem for the Chiefs, at least for the first half of the season. Kind of like you were saying, once you get Rashee Rice back, things should go better for you on offense. But let's face it, Travis Kelce is not the same player that he was in years past. Suddenly you might have the thinnest wide receiver room in the NFL. It's very concerning. It is very concerning. I'm not a Hollywood Brown fan. I've never really have been. The catch radius is so small. He's not reliable. What do you do? Like, if I'm the Chiefs right now, I'm not kind of punting here on a prime season of Patrick Mahomes. Like, eventually you hope that this is going to get better, but I wouldn't leave that up to chance. Like, I'm calling 31 teams right now and see who's willing to trade me a wide receiver.
And unfortunately, most teams just aren't going to trade receivers. Like, there's just not enough talent at receiver across the NFL. And teams like your Steelers have been looking for a number 2 receiver all offseason, and nobody is willing to give one up. I think they're just going to have to try to manage the next 5 weeks, try to get to 3-3. Maybe you can get to 4-2. They play the Eagles coming up. They've got a game against the Ravens. They've got the Lions coming up. Find a way to scrap to get to 500, and then we'll see what their team looks like in November and December. But it's going to be tough. This is where Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and Chris Jones, all 3 of these guys have to live up to their ceilings. I think they will steal a couple of these games, But this is not going to be like the Chiefs team we saw in 2018 or 2021, where they're high flying. It's going to be a grind to win some of these games.
Yeah, Marcus, and I think the cherry on the top for the Chiefs is that Juwan Taylor, their right tackle, might be the most frustrating player in the NFL. Just penalties all the time. But yeah, it's a real concern. I really think that it is. Marcus, let's talk about a player who I didn't know that we would be talking about at this stage in a positive light. Daniel Jones is on a new team. He just came off of a really impressive game with the Indianapolis Colts. There were questions, albeit, I mean, it seemed kind of far-fetched at the time. Could Daniel Jones do what Sam Darnold did last year for the Minnesota Vikings? You and I have both been Shane Steichen believers in the past during his time with Philadelphia. But, I mean, is this something that he can is he the real deal? I mean, I've seen too much of Daniel Jones to buy into this, but I want to ask you, do you think that Daniel Jones could suddenly revive his career now with the Indianapolis Colts?
No, I think he could be a average-ish starting quarterback, right? And honestly, for him, that would probably be a big win. Like just getting back to being somebody who should be an every week starter would be a massive win for Daniel Jones, who was released at middle part of last year. I think the bigger thing here is honestly how bad Anthony Richardson has been over the last 2 years, where Daniel Jones walks into the lineup and it's like, oh my gosh, we have a quarterback now that can actually complete passes and throw the ball downfield and be accurate. I don't think he's the franchise, turning guy for the Colts, but he is somebody that's good enough to help develop Tyler Warren, that's good enough to get the ball to Michael Pittman and AD Mitchell and Alec Pierce. And this is what we've been talking about all offseason. Like the Colts just needed a competent quarterback. It was never going to be Anthony Richardson. We'll see if it's going to be Daniel Jones, but I think at least coming out of week one, you feel like, okay, we're not awful at the quarterback position again this year.
Yeah, and I mean, for context here, Daniel Jones went 22 of 29, 272 yards. That's 9.4 yards per attempt with a touchdown, no picks, was sacked only once, 87.5 QBR, 116 passer rating. I mean, he was impressive. There's no getting around it. I'm not buying that this guy, 6 years into his NFL career, suddenly changes the player that he was all along, but it's not hard to draw some of those parallels that we saw with Sam Darnold, who everybody wrote off as a draft bust at that point. I'm still not buying it. I'm still not buying. I don't believe in Daniel Jones, but maybe he can make me a believer. He does this 2 or 3 more times early in the season. We'll see. But like you said, the most common solution here, the most overarching thing was just how bad Richardson has been.
Yeah.
And so in comparison, this looks a whole lot better. And maybe Miami's defense is not that good. We'll get there in just a second. Marcus, let's talk about your Dallas Cowboys for a minute here. They played the Eagles about as tough as you could. And it was a story of two kind of halves, if you will. I mean, weather delay kind of cut the middle between. Both teams were scoring at will before the weather delay. Neither team could score after that, but they kept it close. So I give them a lot of credit. CD obviously blamed himself for the 4 big drops in this game. I thought Dak was miraculous. I mean, that the accuracy and touch that he put on those passes was really impressive. And their run defense, they were able to shut down Saquon Barkley, at least after the weather delay. Their run defense really tightened up. Marcus, Dallas Cowboys, you know them as well as anybody. Are you buying them as a playoff team this year, even without Micah Parsons?
No, but I think they showed us in week one that they can be a really fun and gritty team. I still think they're going to probably win somewhere between 7 to 8 games. Listen, if Dak Prescott continues to play at that level, they're going to upset some pretty good teams. But they have one of the hardest schedules in the league. They play the NFC North, which has the Packers, the Vikings.
Mm-hmm.
We think the Bears are going to be better, obviously, this year. The Lions, I think, are going to be a playoff team. And then they play the AFC West, which might be the best division in football. Like, this is just a very tough schedule. And honestly, there's a chance they could get to 8 wins. And we talk about them as one of the better teams in the league because of this schedule. But they just don't have the depth that they've had in previous seasons. And that's honestly the big reason why they traded Micah Parsons, is because they just felt like players 10 through 25 on their roster have really declined compared to previous years. if Dak could play at this level, maybe they make the playoffs, but I don't see it. I just don't think they've got the roster,
Yeah.
at least in an NFC that's absolutely loaded to be one of the top 7 teams.
Yeah, I mean, when the Cowboys traded Parsons away, it's like, what are you doing? You've got to win now. Dak's the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. You gave him that contract. You gave CD the contract the year prior. It's like, go out there and capitalize on this window. But I think that Dallas started as strong as you could expect them to. I don't think the trade looks terrible for them right now, considering all the draft capital they're going to be getting. That could obviously change very quickly here. But Marcus, I'm going to take your 8 or 9 wins. I'm going to raise you to 9 or 10 wins. Do I think they're going to be a playoff team without Micah? No, I think that they fall just outside of that wild card race, but I think that they can make it close. I think that this is a team that is relevant week 17, week 18 of the regular season here, and they're going to have a chance. They kind of remind me of the NFC version of the Cincinnati Bengals, where you can go toe-to-toe with a lot of teams when Dak is healthy because you've got the firepower, you've got the quarterback, you can put up points. Will they be able to stop teams consistently? I think that that's the big concern that both you and I have about the Cowboys this year. I think that they do a little bit better than you're expecting, but I still think that they ultimately fall short. I'm not buying them as a playoff team. I certainly don't buy them as a playoff contender at this point if they were to make the tournament, but there's a lot of season left ahead of us. Marcus, I want to close out our overreactions by talking about Miami Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel. This guy was flaming hot. He was red hot a few years back. I mean, we talked about some of the best single game offensive performances you've ever seen in the league. I think about the Dolphins game that they had against the Broncos a couple years ago and just how remarkable it was to put up the points at will that they did. They've had some of the best offenses in recent years, but things have spiraled out of control starting last season. And all of a sudden, Mike McDaniel, a guy that we thought was going to be maybe the next up and coming offensive mastermind in the league, doesn't look like that guy anymore. Like his team scored 8 points and they just got massacred by the Indianapolis Colts, a team that nobody expects to be a playoff team this year. Marcus, is Mike McDaniel going to be the first coach fired in the NFL this year, or is that an overreaction?
No, I think it's very likely. And it's unfortunate because I do think Mike McDaniel's a good coach, but this is the danger of going all in when you are a borderline playoff team, because Miami had made the playoffs multiple times with Mike McDaniel, but when you're not one of these elite teams, and they went out and they traded for Tyreek Hill and they traded for Jalen Ramsey and they went out and they got Bradley Chubb and all these big name players. And then 2 years later, right, when you don't ultimately get past the first round, this is what it can look like. This roster is awful. It's the worst secondary in the NFL. The offensive line has had a bunch of injuries because they're relying on older guys like James Daniels, who's coming off an Achilles injury. He gets hurt in week 1. Austin Jackson, who's actually played pretty well, an oft-injured tackle, gets hurt in week 1. It's really unfortunate. I think it's more of a poor job by the GM giving Mike McDaniel a very flawed roster. But the GM's not going to fire himself. It's going to be Mike McDaniel that's ultimately, he's going to have to wear the crown on this. And I don't think he makes it through the season. It's an unfortunate situation, but such is life in the NFL. You need to win playoff games. You need to go deep in the playoffs when you make all of these big time moves, and the Dolphins just haven't done it.
Yeah, Marcus, I'm going through my head thinking about all the NFL coaches on that hot seat right now. And a lot of these coaches around the league, I think they're too new, too fresh into these jobs to get the axe that early. I agree. And I don't, by any means, I do not think that Mike McDaniel is the worst head coach in the NFL, but I think that he has the most to potentially lose right now out of all the teams. You either have that really tenured head coach who's not going anywhere, or you've got the guy that is way too early in the tenure that's not going to be fired yet. So I do think that Mike McDaniel will be the first head coach fired this year. I can't see the Dolphins being a good team. They're not playing tough. They don't have the talent. And I mean, this showed. Week 1 just showed their glaring weaknesses. And so I would agree with that. And it's unfortunate. We'll see if that happens, how soon he gets picked up. Is he going to have to go like the Arthur Smith route and take an offensive coordinator job somewhere? We will find out. Marcus, I want to close today's show by just giving our Thursday night football predictions. We got maybe an interesting game here. I want to see, what do you think of this, Marcus? Tell us about the game on Thursday night and give us a score prediction.
Yeah, it's the Commanders versus the Packers. A very fun game, by the way. Like this is a good Thursday night game to get us started. I don't see any way the Packers don't win this game. I mean, Matt LaFleur has had Dan Quinn's number for the last several years. He's always designed a really good offense. And Jaden Daniels has really struggled whenever he's had to go up against Micah Parsons. And I would expect Micah to play more snaps this week, coming off the quote unquote back injury. This is a really tough matchup for an older Washington team. That sounds weird to say, considering that we're only in year 2 of Jaden Daniels, but this is the oldest team in the NFL. You put them on a short week against an excellent opponent. I'm taking the Packers to win and cover.
Yeah, Marcus, I think on paper, you would think this game could be close because both of these teams won comfortably in week 1. Jaden Daniels is that guy for the Commanders, but we talked about the Packers on this show, just how good that roster is, and they added Micah Parsons to it. I think that the Packers are going to win fairly comfortably in this one. I've got the Packers taking this game 31-21. So we will see how that turns out. What's your score prediction for Thursday Night Football? Let us know down in the chat. Leave us a comment down below and a like. Help us get seen. Thank you so much. We go live on the Stacking the Box show every Tuesday now at 2 p.m. Eastern time. You can follow Marcus on X at Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on X at Tommy Jaggi. You can download the Stacking the Box podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Also check us out on YouTube. You can follow my written content on stillcurtain.com. Check out Marcus's written content on the Fansided NFL Network. Be sure to check out fansided.com for your daily sports news and opinions. Thanks again for listening to Stacking the Box.